And there were, as I understood, there were meetings, our fire department and their fire department and all that.
That's correct.
Prior to all of this, trying to help put something together.
Yes, sir. As we were evaluating our fire department situation a couple of months ago, Chief Stockton and City Manager Gregory did reach out to Sands Park, schedule a meeting to discuss potentially regionalizing fire services between the two agencies. And they were not interested in pursuing that at the time.
On that fire in Sansom Park,
Yes,
did they have, you said they only had one on duty, was there a truck at the scene?
yes, sir.
Isn't that a big time violation, the truck? Leave the fire hall with one driver?
There is a state law referred to among firemen as the 2-in, 2-out rule, that you don't make entry into a working fire scene.
Well, I thought a truck couldn't leave the building with just one.
There's not any kind of rule about fire trucks. There is about ambulances. You can't run ambulances with less than one person. It's not the safest of situations to drive a big truck like that by yourself. Having that person in the right front seat to keep an eye on the other side of the truck and so forth for you is pretty important. But as far as a state law, I'm not aware of a state law that limits that.
I would hope that with the open dialogue, that we could come to some type of agreement or there's a form of first responder. I have big problems about not going to help with all man, but I understand the safety concerns and hopefully the city can get together and work this thing out and come to some mutual agreement to make this focus.
I can't speak for Eastman, but I know whenever we was involved with Westford, Sansom Park, and all trying to come up with the fire department, there were some Sansom Park at that time, and I actually heard as long as Chief Shell is involved, we will not work with you, period.
They've got a different sort of set of
I understand that, but they still have the same leadership they have.
Well,
I
can do is ask and put it out there.
Right, and that's what they've done. They've reached out and they've tried.
I'd like to be on the record as saying I'm happy to work with the City of Sansom Park to resolve this situation in any way we can do that, short of putting our personnel at risk without adequate resources on the scene. Until we get back to where everybody's working together, I just don't think it's in our best interest to do so.
I move over. I just remember being out there on midnight at the county or even River Road when we ran one person. I didn't care what kind of uniform they had. If you're a storm, you need help. You need help, and I was welcome anyhow. So again, but I don't want to put our personnel.
Storms are a different story. It's a regular call, it's a house call. And we cannot afford firemen to go over and lose their lives. We've lost them in the past, so we absolutely can't afford it.
So I move that we approve the fire chief's recommendation that we provide 60 days notice to Sansom Park that we will terminate the mutual aid agreement with the condition that it be expressly conveyed to them that if they can address their staffing issues, that we would be happy to revisit.
It's a notification to structure.
As it relates to structure, to fires, yes.
And the communication will be from our city manager.
Yes, to authorize the city manager to convey that, to inform them of that.
Second.
Got a motion and second, any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Item number 19, discussion on our action regarding the interlocal agreement with the City of Fort Worth involving Manning Road right-of-ways. Marvin, can you explain that?
What this entails is back on March the 12th this year, the City Council voted for the City of Fort Worth to take the lead in right-of-way acquisition because they had the agreement with TxDOT, which is called Advanced Funding Agreement. And what that means is when they acquire the right-of-ways, then the money will be reimbursed to the entities. And it was between between the City of Fort Worth and the TxDOT. City of River Oaks doesn't have such an agreement at this present time. And City of Fort Worth is concerned that if they do not have the eminent domain part of it under the, they had, that their agreement to go out and meet with the people and negotiate, and if they didn't have some kind of eminent domain authority, then it would kind of lock their hands of being able to get involved with all of the property owners that were involved. There is a, according to a Bill of Rights, when you're dealing with right-of-way acquisitions, there's a certain checklist that they have to go through, and my understanding is one of those checklists is the eminent domain authority. Now, nobody wants to do eminent domain, definitely. But in order for the City of River Oaks to take that up, we would, number one, have to go get an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT. We don't know how long that would take. We would also need to get a third-party right-of-way acquisition person to go out to do the negotiations. And the city would have to, in the meantime, pay out that amount of money. Now, we don't know exactly how much money that's going to be or what it's going to involve, but that would have to come out of the city reserve account, at least until we could get the reimbursement, and as to how long it would take to get reimbursement back from that, and for how long our funds would be sort of depleted. To do that has raised a concern. City of Fort Worth attorneys are adamant that I mean, they're not demanding, but they're adamant that the only way that they feel like that they could go on and take this on their own is, of course, they have the funding to be able to do it, whereas the City of River Oaks is sort of limited. They could do that, but again, without having this authority, they feel like in dealing with any of the property owners would not be mutually beneficial to them, and their attorneys advise them as such. So that leaves us with how do we want to handle what's called an interlocal agreement with the City of Fort Worth? Do we want to just let Fort Worth have the negotiation authority, as we've already given them, with the eminent domain, but recommend safeguards be put in there that our citizens would be protected in the event of something like that came to head, and let them deal with all the eminent domain process, whereas the City of River Oaks would not deal with it under that circumstance. But in order to do that, we would have to go back to the March 12th decision that the City Council here made, and would have to remove the eminent domain, that we reserve the right for eminent domain, and allow it to go to the City of Fort Worth.
I made the motion on March 12th, and the reason I did it was because I don't, just sort of on principle, like the idea of giving another city eminent domain authority in our city. What Marvin has said, I think, indicates that they're just not going to do that. And so we would have to figure out, like you said, how to bridge that. So I think what I would say is, like you said, about safeguards. So basically what you're asking for tonight is just the authority to negotiate that interlocal agreement, and the agreement would still come back to us for approval, correct?
The interlocal agreement would come back to you.
So with that, what I would like to see, like you said, about safeguards, to make sure that we do still have some sort of mechanism in there that if there's overreach happening from Fort Worth, that we have not just an expectation, but a responsibility to represent our citizens and to look out for our citizens. And so with that, I'm not thrilled with it, but I don't see that we have much other choice. We just have to make